Good afternoon, Drupaldelphia. This is a session called Aegir, Ansible, and Cloud APIs, how we use Drupal to manage our entire platform as a service. Really excited about this talk. So, the problem is that creating servers is really easy. That's the problem, right? You got all these ways to do it. It is actually really easy. You press a button or you use the APIs and you get servers, but configuring them and tracking them is kind of hard, right? You have to do more thinking about that, and there's a million ways to do it. So there's solutions. There's a couple solutions you may have heard of. This is a great graphic I just found. There's other ones about like the CD Cloud Foundation and stuff they put together. There's millions of companies and tools and all sorts of stuff to like manage your DevOps. But we think this Drupal thing is a really cool way to do it and centralize all of that because you can plug anything into it. So Aegir's this 11-year-old Drupal hosting system, right? It runs in Drupal 7, it hosts Drupal 8. But with Ansible, it's got exactly the right structures for managing an Ansible inventory. This is what Aegir looks like. It's not super pretty, but it's old and it works. It just lists sites, but it also has servers. So I created an open dev shop on top of that to make it more like developer friendly. It's got like Git push workflows and stuff like that. It's really just Aegir under the hood though, right? So both systems leverage these concept of servers. There's server node types. Thanks. And each of those, these are just nodes, okay? And there's each server lists the services that it's running, and you give it enough information, and it can verify that that thing is working. So you go to create a server, you punch in the host name, you punch in the right username and password. When you select MySQL, you put in this information for Apache, and if you put in the right information, the verify task, the task system in Aegir, runs on the back end and then does the job, and it has the logic, the code has the logic to see if it's working. So like if it can access that MySQL database, then it can create more databases, then it can do, and if it can write certain folders and run this Apache command, this site can then recreate more Drupal sites. So that's what like server verification does. It just verifies that you can access it and that the connection credentials are correct, and you get this basic UI, which is just a Drupal site, where you can see like green verify server or red if it fails, and then you can have these different task types. And like other information, it's just a Drupal site, and it's really for sysadmins, so they don't really spend too much time on like amazing UX. It's an open source project. So the old way of doing things with Aegir or with anything else really, you kind of have to manually set up your server, and then you can kind of plug it into Aegir and get it automated. Like I just said, you have to put the password in, you create the server, you install all these packages. There's Debian packages and other ways to make it smoother, but you still kind of have to do this work on the terminal first before you can kind of get that server, right? Then once you have that information, that's why I created this like big ugly blue message on the create server page, because up until I did this, Aegir itself didn't have any indication that that was true, and as a first user of Aegir, you would just see server hosting and be like, oh great, I'll punch whatever in, and then verification would fail. And you'd be like, why did that happen? And you go through this learning curve of figuring out how it worked. And the point is, you have to do it backwards. You create the server first, you set up the database server, the password, all that stuff, and then you go to Aegir, and then the verify turns green if you put the information in there properly. So we're like, okay, there must be a better way. This is very tedious. Yeah.
Sorry, Drupal redundancy.
Yeah.
So this has to be on two separate servers. So
no, this is all on one. This is actually on one server. Aegir can run a single server, but you saw like these local hosts or whatever. Is that what you're asking? This is all right now. This can. Aegir host maintains itself, basically. Okay. So right. Yeah, these server nodes represent this server this site is actually running, right?
So you're okay. So so it's trying to see whether it can build something on a separate server.
It starts out on itself, a single server, and then you can add additional servers, which are remotes.
There you go. Okay,
that's what this is. Yeah, this is a secondary remote. Okay, so it's optional. Like it starts with a single server setup. And it can configure itself and put as many sites on that single server as you need. That's it. Okay. Using virtual hosts and databases instead of Docker. No confusing stuff. Just basic raw services, right? So again, yeah, there must be a better way, right? And so we've been doing this a long time. I started doing it with Chef and Puppet. Ansible is great. Again, it's a Drupal module, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. These are all the ways you can make servers. But here's how if you've used Drupal VM, you know Jeff's work. Jeff made an incredible amount of Ansible Roles for like just about everything. This is not even, I didn't even search for him. You go to Ansible Galaxy and he's on the first page, right? So any of these roles are great. the Drupal VM uses Apache, PHP, MySQL. DevShop uses those plus a couple more just to make sure the Aegir user is in place so it can do some of the self-automation stuff. Ansible really is still just a tool, though, right? You actually need to go to the Ansible docs and go to like starting with the basics. It's like relatively simple, but once you kind of get deep into it and start using these roles, you have to kind of go through all these steps to actually get it running, unless it's in Drupal VM where it's just like Vagrant up or something else. So you have to kind of understand the concept that there's these roles that are like Drupal modules up there that Ansible Galaxy hosts. You say download them. You have to create a playbook, create a vars file, you run this command, and hope it all goes well and keep doing it until you kind of get used to it. This is an example of a playbook. Right, and this is right off of Jeff's documentation page. So it's still kind of this manual process. Ansible's great, but you still have to maintain this YAML file and kind of, remember the commands, and there's a lot of options to the commands, like Ansible Playbook. So there is still it is still a relatively manual process, even if you're using Ansible. There still must be a better way, right? So a couple of years ago, this is actually 3-year-old code, this Aegir Ansible stuff I presented in the Philly meetup 3 years ago. Aegir and Drupal would make a great platform for managing these inventories. All the information we needed was already there, both to create servers with the cloud APIs that all the providers provide. Not only do they provide APIs like Linode, Google, Packet, Amazon, they all have APIs. They all have PHP libraries that make it super easy too. So all we had to do is load all that stuff into the one thing. We created these 2 sets of modules that work in concert to do complete and total automation from scratch. Why does Drupal make a great Ansible inventory? Well, oh yeah, sorry. We're getting that second because it's more complicated. We'll start with the cloud stuff. Okay, Aegir Cloud. Instead of selecting database, boom, we got Drupal code. This is just Forms API and a little PHP magic. You select DigitalOcean, it knows the regions, it knows the images, the server size, you get a user interface, you choose what you want, and you hit go, creates a server. Super basic code to make these things possible. So DigitalOcean, Packet, SoftLayer, I've already done. Anybody else can help come in and maintain these things for other systems like Linode or Amazon. Super easy classes. The forms is just Drupal 7 Forms API, right? Each provider has slightly different options for region or image, or they call it a different thing. We can just customize just that piece for that provider. A method for destroying the server is like super simple. This just loads the DigitalOcean API, calls just delete, and throws a Drupal error, a Drupal form error if it doesn't work. So all of this stuff works in concert and lets you can even enable multiple cloud providers on one host. I didn't hear it's just DigitalOcean, but you can enable SoftLayer and Packet and other ones to have the same site, create servers in any of those providers. Yep, go ahead.
So it'll go create, so I don't have to go into, I don't have to open up DigitalOcean and say, let me buy a whole new server. It'll do that.
Yeah, you fill out, you punch in I should have done a full, actually, yeah.
You're good. I'm just very.
yeah. It pings the API and then it comes back and tells you like if there was something wrong, and then it creates a server on the back end. So the settings page, basically, you put your token in. You can check this box. I put code in there to create and destroy DNS records, so you can actually access it with the real domain right away. And then these are just defaults, so that when you go to the form create server, these defaults are the ones that are already set. The SSH keys thing is from DigitalOcean and most others. They're like, what SSH keys do you want me to put on the server as root? So I just check that box, and I have access to all my servers right out of the gate. And when you're done, it runs this verify task. Aegir's tasks are these old but useful tools. I just hook into that. It waits for the IP to come back from the API. It waits for the domain to validate. It waits for every step you need, DNS, and then it waits for SSH. And then once that's done, Aegir Ansible comes along, right? So we save the options that you selected, and we save the data that comes back from the API. So like we have the DigitalOcean ID and whatever data comes back from their API, we just save it. So it's pretty simple to kind of, it's arbitrary, right? But every system, you pass options and it gives you back data, right? Right now, like I said, these are the 3 supported. If you would like to support more, we would love maintainers and backers. We have an OpenCollect. Like I said, they're just like Drupal modules, but it's really, you kind of have to maintain them long term if you have to be using those cloud providers. So it can be a challenge to maintain like all of the cloud providers. And the first one everyone asks for, of course, is Amazon, but you look at their API, they're like one of the most complex APIs there are compared to the rest of these. So and there are other tools that actually run Drupal and create Amazon servers. Like there's a module called Cloud that is now being remaintained after many years. So once that's done, what do? We decided, we kind of sat on Ansible, landed on Ansible for the best way to configure these servers, right? And why? This is the Aegir server page. I want to get rid of those big X's because it looks like there's something wrong, but it just means they don't have those services. But look, we have the inventory of servers. We've got the list of servers. The list of host names and IPs is in that also. We've got we've got the roles, Ansible roles. We've got variables, like we're already doing this. This is 10-year-old code, this Forms API. Right, we store the username, and we need the username for the variable later. So we got roles and variables. We've got playbook runs, a history of playbook runs. Drupal Aegir tasks are just nodes, and they're stored forever until you delete them, right? And not just what ran and when, but every log output is also stored in there, so you can go back and view them, just like Jenkins or whatever else you might be using. Like this. We've got real-time color output. So there's logs, playbook run status and history, so you can see if it passed or failed. Every Ansible playbook run returns an exit code if it failed or passed. And it's all YAML. It's like everything is YAML. So this is perfect fit. Perfect fit for between Drupal and kind of Ansible management. This is getting a little deeper, but this is where some serious magic happens. Inventory in Ansible is this thing where you have to maintain a list of your servers somehow, right? Ansible has like 2 or 3 different formats. There's like an ini format, and I think there's a YAML format, but there's also a remote inventory function where it will actually, people can write a plugin, and whatever that script returns in this form, if it returns it in this format in JSON, then that works as well. There's Amazon plugins and other things. We are providing an inventory over JSON that you can pull from anywhere, so we can run commands. I'll show you the command in a minute. I got to rearrange these slides a little bit. Yeah, I've already gone over that stuff. Okay, so it's a set of modules. Services are pre-configured for Aegir, like get it to work with Apache, get it to work with the database. You just select Ansible MySQL, and look, it will be configured automatically. Instead of having a text field for the root password, it just generates it and saves it in the system and provides it as a variable to the role. Same thing with web. You used to have to type in the reset command and save it there, and hopefully the restart command worked with sudo, but this time it's configured automatically, except port, you might actually want to edit the port, so we leave that to be editables for users. Ansible Roles allows you to add any role you want from the Galaxy in the Drupal UI. You go to the settings page, you click Add Role, you type in the name, you can even type in a different Git URL for the source of the role. This is Ansible Roles, remember, this is like the role of the server, not a Drupal role. Type in the version, and it maintains a list in the Drupal site, and it automatically installs those on the back end, so you can just check boxes when you create your server.
So what do the different checkboxes do?
It depends. So GearlingGuy.GitHub users, these are like you would see GearlingGuy.php, for example. These are like public roles from Ansible Galaxy, which is like the Drupal.org of Ansible. So there's public roles for everything. And Jeff is known for like maintaining them top notch, right? So GitHub users is really cool. You pipe in a list of GitHub usernames, it automatically creates a user on the server for every GitHub user in that list. And automatically puts the SSH keys, all your SSH keys from GitHub on there. But each of these do different things. This is part of our platform as a service. So we added these extra roles so that every customer server automatically gives me access as a systems admin with this .security. It automatically adds a Chinga, and it sets up a whole new dev shop. Ansible Variables is another module where it simply provides a text field to let you add additional variables for each server, and merges that with all the other variables that get created from this whole system, so that when you go to the server, you can very easily click Edit on the server node, you scroll down, you type in whatever Ansible variables you want, it validates it on the client side as valid YAML, so you can't submit bad YAML, and it also shows you the existing variables that were generated from all the different roles that you selected, right? So the really powerful, really easy to override stuff, and all of like Ansible Variables is a common system. If you go to the documentation of any role on Galaxy, Jeffs are the best. You'll see right on the README is a documentation of all the different variables like memory limit and query. Everything is in there available for you. So it's really quick and easy to customize that stuff. And then this is the dynamic inventory I mentioned earlier. And yeah, this is more detail. So this is a really cool thing because some of the hardest stuff is like, how do I get into the server to configure it? Say someone's got like firewall, you can run Ansible anywhere and load this JSON over the web. So you can run your Aegir or dev shop somewhere and then call Ansible from anywhere that can get that inventory, right? So what you do is you set up this host file to be a script, and it actually does a curl and gets that JSON and spits it out. So we're going to use this for our clients that require us to be behind firewalls or behind VPNs, for example, so that the servers will be able to configure themselves based on the information on the site outside.
So basically, you've got like the master command in one server in your office.
Right.
And then in the data center is a Ansible server that.
What we're thinking is have like basically run our own agent. Like Ansible doesn't have its own agent. Mm-hmm. They just don't. That's not their model. But this way, we can. Yeah, the servers could check in with the master server essentially, load their inventory, which contains like memory limit. What users should I allow? All these variables, can pull it over the web and then use that to configure itself.
So this is kind of like running like a benevolent botnet thing?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, you could use it for anything. Yes.
No, I know,
yeah,
okay,
you really
cool.
could. Yeah, but the point is, like, you can centralize this inventory, right? And have these servers kind of pull all from the same place.
Right. Okay.
Because that's kind of the challenging thing is like you can run Ansible on the master, you can run Ansible on the unit itself, you can run it anywhere. It's just a command. It's really simple to use, and there's options for what user you run as. So deciding like where's my inventory going to be is kind of one of the first step you figure out when you try to actually go to production. Like where's our source of truth for this list of servers?
And the inventory is the one source of.
This becomes the source of truth for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
So then all of the
like having a puppet master.
Yeah, exactly. It's Ansible Tower,
Okay.
right? Puppet Master or Foreman or whatever. These like central.
Right.
Every automation system has something like this.
Right.
What I turn Drupal into that.
Okay.
And so even the Ansible thing is just modules, right? The server nodes are abstracted from that. So if we wanted to write Aegir Puppet or Aegir Salt, which actually looks really cool, Salt looks amazing, we could do that. And basically, once you have this dynamic inventory set up, you can just run this command Ansible without telling it the inventory option, and it'll load up that stuff remotely and run against all those things. So if you can still use it with command line and do all sorts of stuff with this Ansible, you literally can do anything, basically. And it's all just server nodes. These are all just Drupal nodes. So in our use case, like our back-end dashboard for DevShop Cloud, or we want to fire up new servers for customers really quickly, there's some custom things we want to put in there for ourselves, like our Achinga host, our list of users, right? So we wrote a custom module that's private code. It's not open source because it's just for us. That simply alters the node, alters the variables, and sets up like the security for the Geerling Guy security role. It sets up these super admin users for sudo or passwordless. That gets loaded into the node, which gets piped into the inventory, and that's it. So it's super easy to kind of customize and also have like pre-built stuff already in it. This is what I was talking about. The GitHub users role is awesome. All you got to do is provide this little list of users. Even this example is overly complicated. So you just fabpot. I just put -JohnQ, -whoever. As soon as you run that.
GitHub provides public key?
Yep. Username.keys.
Really?
GitHub.com/username.keys lists all your public keys with all the extra info scraped also. So you don't see the name or anything. It's brilliant. Like, why aren't we doing that for everything, you know? I instantly get access. I set this role to be like, I actually set this role to be second. I set the Achinga role to be first, so I get graphing as soon as possible, and then this role so that, like, seconds, within a minute or two after that button is pushed, I can log into that server from all of my laptops.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because it pulls all of your public keys from GitHub and puts them all in the authorized keys for that user. So it's great, because I basically I have a master list that's just your GitHub username. If I put you in that list and run verify across all my servers, you instantly have root access to all my servers. SSH, which is what the IT admins actually need to get in there when things really go wrong, right? Last module is just a simple playbook. It allows arbitrary Ansible playbook commands to be run. You just click Run Playbook, type the name, and this is like if you're really used to the Ansible stuff, you can punch in very specific things here. And that's what, that's what the run looks like. So yeah, that was like 60 slides, 80 actually. What we're going to do now is kind of play with it. So, but I can kind of break for questions. But basically, what is our platform, right? DevShop is the CI, open source CI for Drupal, right? It's open source, Apache Cloud or Pantheon. We provide support agreements, and we are starting to sell servers through both a support service called devshop.support, where you host your own. You bring us the servers, we plug in and monitor. Or we also, you can press a button and get your own server without having a second bill and having to have your own. Basically, our backend uses all of this to fire it up, and after I leave it a couple seconds for questions, I'll kind of show how that works. No questions at all?
So you grabbed me apart because I don't know much about Ansible.
Yeah.
So is Ansible, I feel like there's this sort of split where there's some things like maybe Salt that are more like remote command tools, and some that are like Puppet where it's actually explicitly designed to be configuration management.
Right.
Where does Ansible fall within that?
It is kind of, it's kind of in between. It really is. Like, it is just commands. It is all just commands. It's just basically allows you to, it's just running that stuff over SSH, and it all boils down to like, it just generates these shell scripts actually. Each module just ends up generating something. But it's the inventory systems, I think, that make it really cool, and it allows you to, like, you could run Ansible Playbook web servers, and it would run against however many you would have. It would run against all of them.
Sure.
It is kind of both.
It is kind of both.
SSH as its agent.
Right.
That means you don't have to have a separate agent on the machine. All you need is a key. But then in the Ansible config, you say, hey, I've got this machine, it should be a DNS server, and it should have these zones.
Okay.
And then it kind of translates that into, okay, I know what SSH and shell commands I need to do to make that happen.
Okay. But it won't necessarily do, like Puppet, if I go in and edit a file, Puppet manages, Puppet will be like, hey, I'm going to like revert that change.
Right. It's like a state thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ansible, like, I guess it's kind of grown in popularity because it's flexible. It kind of can be used in all these different ways. Yeah, you run the playbook, and when a change happens, basically, is what you have to do there. But I mean, I think people do that.
Ansible have check the state of all the systems and revert anything that's changed?
I mean, I don't know. I thought there was this playbook, Ansible playbook runs, but there's probably there's tools in there for just about everything.
It is a very powerful, very flexible system. So I
I don't know much about anything you're talking about.
Well, that's why we're hoping.
No, I'm kidding.
That's the point. Like, it's just you hear DevOps, you're like, I want to get into that. I want to learn Ansible. I want to learn. It can be very overwhelming, and like having to do everything by hand, it can be very tricky. So we're trying to kind of just make it easier.
So thank you.
Automate.
So I know that with Aegir, and I've never installed it yet. So, but I know that like you create a platform, you say this is the version, and let's say I make module updates, and I say I move this to here, and then you hit a button and it does that for you. Does that also happen with the server? So like, let's say I need to upgrade from PHP 7.1 to 7.2. I can do that. Like I can do that in the Ansible playbook stuff.
Yeah, essentially every time it runs the playbook, like it reads the inventory. So sometimes you can just change the variable for those Skierling guys playbook. There's just a variable to change the PHP version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then it'll go to the server.
It's basically what you're talking. There's a verify server. It's a verify server task compared to what you're talking about is not even in this talk right now. It's the platforms and sites part of the Drupal deployment part of it. Those are separate node types that link into the servers but basically the servers can run and verify completely separately from that.
So the playbook will update the server from like PHP 7.
It can. Yeah,
Okay,
if that's what we need. Yeah.
This is so hot. Like smart people. My head hurts.
Yeah. All right, you want to see some of it in action?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so if you go to our site, devshop.support, it's just a basic like landing page, product-y page. You can click connect with GitHub to sign up. I'm just going to log in here myself. I already have a team, but if you've never been here before, you add a team first and then a server. So, but I already got one, so I'm just going to add another one. I'm going to keep it under this team. Philly, right? So this is the actual like what you are going to. It still needs work, but this is what you're going to sign up and actually use once it's fully automated. And kind of choose this as your droplet here, right? I'm still an admin, so you're going to see some extra stuff, but that's fine. Right. So coming up, got a license key here, and basically it then pings our backend, which has all the cool stuff that I talked about today. Right. This is the list of our servers. I want to go to add server. There's already an API for this, so that's how it's going to work. Our front-end site pings this, but I want to show you how we do it manually. If I pick this host name, and that's how it knows what DNS account to put it under. Choose DigitalOcean. It's already preset. And then I choose my special role. Because this, what I'm actually doing here is creating a whole nother DevShop server. Like this is one DevShop server creating another one. So I'm not even bothering with like the built-in web or database stuff for Aegir here. I've got my own custom one. And yeah, I'll show you kind of the source. It actually lists the roles.
A little bit smaller.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to scale it up. So with a custom module, I can say easily modify the list of roles instead, so that I don't have to remember to check all these. Right. So my platform, by checking this one, automatically sets all the other roles. I put my license key in there. This is custom code that just saves it, pipes it into the Ansible variables. And that's all I got to do. I hit create server. It pings DigitalOcean. That's why it takes a few more seconds. Waits for it to come back. Make sure the API worked, and then there it is. So there's the DigitalOcean ID and all that stuff. The verify server task is queued and already running. If I click view, still queued, it should be running. I'll just kickstart that real quick. I was toying around with it today. Again, this is our back-end platform, so it's a lot more complicated. We don't normally have to do this. What did that do? There it goes. Okay, there it goes. So the server droplet's already been created, but it may not have an IP address, so we wait for that. And then there it is. And then we wait for the API to return active droplet, and then we wait for the DNS, and then we wait for the SSH, and then sometimes it actually just hangs here, and sometimes it just works, and it just worked. So we took all the data in the Drupal site, we render an Ansible playbook dynamically. So at the end of the day, you're still getting a playbook file and a variables coming dynamically, but you can put variables in the playbook. Right? It tells you where it saves it, so that every time you can just kind of edit it, and then there it goes. It kicks off this Ansible playbook call, installing the Achinga packages.
Achinga?
Achinga is you heard of Nagios? It's a monitoring. It's a giant, yeah, it's a very complex monitoring thing. But basically, this serves as an API. The servers can link to it, and it starts sending them information. And as soon as that happens, the Achinga feeds to our Grafana, which feeds to these, and the load. We're already getting a load report.
Okay.
So Achinga, this is part of our cloud basically. There's Achinga, there's Grafana, there's like Graphite.
Okay, so Achinga, you're running like this.
There's a client, yeah. There's packages. It's called monitoring plugins on the server that monitors all the different things you need. So we're able to give users disk usage and load graphs. And there it goes. So you can kind of see the Ansible. There's a disk space. So that's why we want that to be the very first thing, so the users get as quickly get as much feedback as they can. I can SSH in now as my username to this brand new droplet. Philly.devshop.cloud. Okay. Yes, and there it is. It's my new droplet. And I don't have to do anything. It's going through my roles and installing. First it installs Gearling Guys, because my role depends on that role. It uses the same Apache setup that Drupal VM uses. Installs everything it needs to run Drupal, and also, on this particular server, run a dev shop. And so it's like, that's it. You just sit there and wait. I can go in, I can just see these variables, and I go. This is my module telling, like, the Chinga is hard-coded, like the IP, with my custom module.
So at the end of this process, you're going to be able to log into Philly Dev Shop and see this whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
So this thing just built itself.
It just built a new dev shop server. This is our central master. It creates new droplets and installs. In our case, we install dev shops on them, but it can install any role.
Right.
Effectively,
Okay.
right?
So if I go to Philly Dev Shop and I buy one, you go put in these things, and then I have
You get a,
one of the whole
Yeah.
server, and then I can create other servers.
Well, yeah, yes, you can actually. But yeah, that's why. That's the tricky part. How do we?
I don't want to
can.
do that. That's crazy.
Right. You
But
can create other remotes. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we're thinking. We're thinking of pivoting the business model a little bit, because you can run this stuff on your own service, totally open source. What we're thinking of doing is basically you sign up, we host the dev shop UI, and then you can, if you want to go to a secondary remote, you put in your API key and you go from there. So essentially, it's like a base price for that, and then you can decide on your own like how you want to scale. Yeah,
Okay.
if you want to go live, you have to add in your own production server basically, but there's no config. You just give us the API key, and then we take it from there.
Okay.
Any questions while this is installing?
Oh, this is.
So yeah, we totally need it's a community effort. This is a Drupal thing. It's in Drupal 7. We definitely need to figure that out in a couple of years.
So the difference between this and Aegir is that this.
These are just add-on modules for Aegir. Yeah, and it contains the logic to install, not just verify that the server works. It can install MySQL.
So Aegir doesn't have code to install itself.
Right. It basically, they maintain a Debian package to do it, so you still do it from the command line, so it's a little bit easier. But Aegir does not, by itself, doesn't contain the code to configure the servers directly, other than the Debian package, and we maintain an install sh script that actually just installs the roles. There it goes. So it saves the license key. See, this comes from our variable, that license key. Look at that, it loaded our users, it checked back. And if we go back to this, you'll see coming up, goes away. Last update 12 seconds ago. And every individual dev shop pings us basically every minute now. So we know they're online. And this is the payload we got from the dev shop server. And that's it, complete. It'll take a few more runs for me to be able to log in, because then the dev shop server takes over actually and does some more verification of itself. But yep, once this, see the Let's Encrypt didn't finalize yet, but it will. And yeah, where'd my slide deck go?
And that's when you log in, it says 22 updates for security and 50 some updates with just general packages.
Yep, I logged in before the role ran, actually. So the auto update role runs. So I mean, it doesn't happen instantly, but you can see the numbers did change. There's no more security updates.
It looks like you did the security ones first.
So the gear and the guy security role, that's what it does. I can show you. Yep, our custom module put that one right at the top, right next to the Chinga and the other one. His README is very, very clear. You're still responsible for security, but basically this role does a lot of good stuff, like installing fail to ban, disable root login, you know, like you change one variable from yes to no, and it will disable root login and only allow those users to log in. Set up automatic updates. There are some other things you might want to do that we do, like this one, securely configure user accounts. I'm actually going to point, this should link to the GitHub one, because the GitHub, those two roles combined make it, that's how I got in there. Not only was I able to SSH in with my new user, I could sudo as well. Yes. See, so now I have this special user. And I don't have to put a password in. So you don't have to maintain your passwords on the like what SSH port should be on.
And what OS is it building?
We use Ubuntu, but you can most of the roles work on Red Hat as well. Which is another. But this is kind of why we like it, because it's like you can use these tools on any type of server. Like you're not locking yourself into Docker, you're not locking yourself into any particular provider, or even the operating system you're using. Like most of our roles work on CentOS 7, you know, Red Hat, and also Ubuntu and Debian, because people have Red Hat licenses. Like
And what
they
would
want,
you have to do to switch to, like, if you wanted to run it on CentOS? You would
it depends on the roles.
Oh,
Some of them, our roles are built in. It'll just detects it and works. I think most of Jeff's do too.
Okay.
Yeah, it
So
all.
does it tweaks the commands based on?
Yeah.
Oh,
See the Debian Red Hat. So this one only runs for Debian. So it changes the package name. This one only runs for Red Hat, and I'll show you how it does that. Include OS-specific variables. Very easy. This is why Ansible is amazing, right? These are default variables it has from whatever system it's running on. So you can use that so that it's only including, and tasks as well. So it's only loading fail to ban -Red Hat if both this variable and the family is Red Hat. So if you kind of write that's why, I mean, one reason Jeff's so amazing is like he got these things to work on all of them. He solved testing on all, like you go look at the Travis tests, they test all these different OSs.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the only reason he's even able to do it, because it's not like he knows, or he's just a genius. So,
yeah, that's, I guess, yeah.
But yeah, the
Use
best.
Puppet, I like Puppet because Puppet knows all that stuff from back end, and you like install this package.
It maintains its own list.
It knows for all different operating systems how to install a package.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
It is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's like, but it's a different.
It's yeah.
It doesn't do like I want to run this command by itself. You have to have some other tool to do that. So it's, yeah. Why people want this as a if you can do all kinds of orchestration, it might be handy.
That's a cool feature.
Yeah, but.
So let's see. We're done yet? We're done. Yeah, I still have to debug this like one. Total automation is so hard. I think there's always a semicolon here. Okay, it starts the tasks. So funny, there's like 4 things that may cause the full total automation to fail, and they're all different, and they all happen randomly, but I know what they are. Like the SSH sometimes hangs, and like the DNS sometimes hangs, and you kind of have to keep going back and finding ways to mitigate those little edge cases. This will force all these tasks to run. Fine, this should fix the SSL. Quietly. So there you go. It's a DevShop server. It actually kicked me out and logged me back in using CAS, so I guess is CAS working now? Yep, there it is. SSL. CAS is a single sign-on system, so I can click this, see this DevShop. This is kind of an example of a activated license of a DevShop server. License status active, shows my user, my essential sign-on user. I can click back and go right back there. See Philly. And so there's the stats, and I click this, and then boom, 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 and I'm in. So when I log out, for example, I'm logged out from the whole cloud. Right, so this is the logged out front page of DevShop. But when you enable the license, you get these two buttons. Instead of a user password, you can log in directly with one. Actually, this won't let me because I don't have access with that account. If I click that, log in with John, I get sent right back to the Philly DevShop. Yeah. And that's it. We're just going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the rest because that's plenty of sessions on DevShop and creating new things. But there are some cool new features, but I'm not going to digress too much. 45 minutes. Yeah. Oh, actually, I know what to do now. Remember I said managing servers is hard? What happens when you're done with it? I'm done with it. I don't want it anymore. I go to the server. I find Philly. Oh, delete server. Run. Did you see the IP addresses there? Like Aegir's stored IP addresses in a field for 10 years. So another reason this is like such a perfect fit of a tool. I click run on delete. You sure you want to delete? This will be completely destroyed. Everything on it, provider, hostname, IP address. This is a link back to the droplet if you really want to be sure. It goes to the API.
Oh my gosh.
Right, so delete the DNS records. Yes, please. All of these were created. Oh, that's from earlier. Look at that. Okay. Delete server. And that's it. Uses the API, destroys the thing, and it's gone. If I go over here, I haven't seen it happen always, but DigitalOcean's API will actually pop up a window that says droplet destroyed without you doing anything. But I guess sometimes it doesn't actually do it.
Does DigitalOcean charge you for DNS?
Oh no, this is Philly Prod. It's already gone. That's a different server. No. They totally don't charge you for DNS. Yeah. Yeah, this is Philly Prod. It's a different server. So it's gone.
You had any issues with their DNS provider?
No. That's been great. Yeah. No more server.
But do they only give you, they'll only give you DNS records to IP addresses, to their IP addresses basically? Or you
Nope.
just use it for anything?
If you have an account, you can use it even if you don't have a droplet, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, networking. I have a ton of domains on it with IPs anywhere,
Yeah.
multiple locations. So,
Does it support DNS tag?
say again?
DNS tag?
I would assume. I don't know. I'm not sure with the DNS sec, like, I haven't used that yet.
There's some RSig records in there.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
some way of saying, sign the domain.
oh, I mean, they support all the DNS, so I'm not sure.
I can see it.
Yeah. So that's our talk. It's a big effort. I would love to update it to Drupal 8. But it's like a whole community. Like, we should all work together and make it happen. But it works now. So we got 2 years. But you saw those. That's classes. It's really not that complicated. But we need backers. We need big companies to help start using this thing and maybe use it.
Well, so the whole Aegir's Drupal 7, right?
Yeah.
Right now. So
The front end dashboard.
What about all the backend code, or is that just kind of reusable?
That's the whole provision discussion. I created a new CLI backend.
Okay.
The current gen is drush commands.
Yeah.
Drush 8. So yeah, that too. But that's a lot of that I've done already with the provision, next version of provision.
Okay.
But there's a lot of it's a very big backlog.
Yeah. Okay.
But the provision 4 is proof of concept, it works. Yeah. And the next month or so I'll get back to getting a Aegir 4 working prototype, because I have gotten it to where you see the provision 4 backend in the Aegir front end, the current Aegir front end. So taking kind of step by step. Cool. Well, that's the talk. If there's no more questions, we can call it. Yeah.
You said if you added some GitHub user, they now have access to all of this stuff. So if I'm a dev shop, I hire a new person. I want him to now be able to manage all of our sites.
Right.
I just add him in there.
Well, that's if you want him to have SSH access
So
as his user, as a user with his name. DevShop has a separate UI. It's logged in.
SSH, okay. SSH,
Yeah,
not into DevShop, but
any server, yeah, the servers themselves. That's a server layer thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of everybody using www data or
right.
not that you
Well,
would-
right. They can SSH in as themselves.
Yeah.
And the role even has a list of users to remove. So when that person leaves,
Then you go,
you have to keep that person's name in there, so Ansible knows to remove it. Maybe that's another thing that Puppet comes in handy, where I don't know how they handle it, but you have to in order to remove the account, you have to maintain them in a separate list.
Okay. But,
I'm trying to remember Puppet. Yeah, you might have
It's
to
got
flag
to.
them as disabled or something. You might still have to flip a bit somewhere.
Yeah.
To basically say shut this person off and remove the keys.
But with the DevShop cloud support portal, you can log into the front end with GitHub with the clicking. You click login with GitHub.
And if it's Ansible or it's public, a friend of mine is using it for some orchestration in his work, and because it runs every 15 minutes to make sure everything is up to date. If you remove someone, then because they're not in the list, they get wiped out and everything's restored. All the people who are current get put in.
Right.
The downside is that every 15 minutes for about 2 seconds, he can't log in at all because the entire key file has been removed and
I was in the process of being updated.
yeah. Which is not a big deal, except he always seems to hit.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I call that, I don't have a name for it, but I should coin a term. The amount of time where you aren't sure yet if it's your computer or the Wi-Fi or the internet or the global internet, there's a certain grace period in there where you're happy to hit reload once or twice and not really be concerned, right?
Yeah.
And if it's within that, you're okay. Because it always could be something, All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.